becoming really good friends with that want to help our family. We are growing not just in numbers.
Are you talking on mute?
Boy, I didn't think I was muted. Can you not hear me? Oh. Uh-oh.
Can you, Thom?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Ngozi, can you hear me?
What happened?
Yeah. So Ngozi, everyone else can hear me. Let's see. Ngozi. All others can hear me. Okay. Connect. I know that some tower. It could be another thing is running on her system. But anyway, I hope Latifat can join us this morning. But she had some great confessions that were helping everyone and encouragements, and I think she'll help our family grow amazingly. So we'll just wait a little time. Guy's here, but he's got a bad voice. Guy, I need to know, should I do the reinforced learning or is Amar coming this morning? I think I just saw the answer. RL by Thom Ives. So we'll have a fun discussion about reinforced learning. And since we're doing that, I will need to go grab it. So give me a minute. Well, please, y'all come off mute and say something. Just be a family while I go grab this for us real quick. So we had intended to have Amar last week talk about Journey to PhD for anyone that has ever thought about that or might want to think about it. And he had to cancel, so we had just a good open session, but we kind of roped Dennis into answering a lot of questions. And so that was fun. Just in case Amar couldn't come this week, we agreed that I would just talk on reinforced learning and we could talk about it as a family. But we're only going to talk about it at a high level, and I'm looking for it right now. I guess it would be here. There we go, learning RL. There we go. Yokita. There she is.
Hi, Thom.
How are you?
Good.
Okay. And then Amar will join next week. Guy is telling us he went to Japan. I'm jealous. I love going to Japan. Oh, yes, Gus, please come off mute and make that recommendation. I think we're probably still waiting for people on bio breaks. We had a.
I started to watch last night. I arrived very late from work because I had to work in Manchester last night. And I came something about like 8 p.m. But I said like I don't want to do anything, just sit back and relax, watch something on Netflix to see. And I tried this thing like play something random, right? And suddenly, this documentary called $1 billion Code is the story about how Google copy all the intellectual property from Terra, Google Earth, copy all the intellectual property of this Terra company from Germany. And it was signed like something like 1990. I remember when I started to play with spatial data that I was like, I want to go and see this place. And it was like, all the things they showed there is, I think is possibly something that most of us have done when we started to play with Google Earth. And I think it's amazing. It's an amazing documentary. I've been watching all of it in one go. I went to bed something about like 2 a.m. in the morning. But it's amazing. It's unbelievable. It's all about data. And it has some coding. I mean, lots of true story things like it's a guy struggling with a code and then like playing with the code and an error and then getting stressed and all of that. So it's really good. I would like to recommend that.
Very cool. Yeah, I think I will watch that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Mitch, hello.
Yeah.
Hey, let's wait for others to show up. But while we're waiting, Gus, thank you for sharing that. So check the
Yeah.
chat to see if I spelled that right. I mean, I got it right. $1 billion code on Netflix. Very good. Okay, good. Just while we're waiting for others to connect, Greg sends his regards. He's just had a lot of family in town. Just so y'all know, Guy has got a bad voice today because of getting sick, because he's still adapting to German weather. And then, Gus, I'm going to just call on you to be my moderator today. And for Ngozi to feel free. Well, no, forgive me. Valerie, can you be kind of co-moderator with Gus today to kind of ask the questions you could imagine that others might want to ask? You're on mute, dear.
Oops, sorry. Oh my goodness.
Am I putting you on the spot too much? You're perfect because I'm assuming you don't know reinforced learning. That's
I don't. I know nothing about it.
And then you will be perfect as a moderator.
Okay.
No, we're going to talk about it very high level. I'm not like going to teach y'all how to do it. So I'm going to show you how I went about learning it and why it helped me so much.
Okay.
Hello, Mitch. Yes. Excellent. There we go. Hugo's here. We really can't start until Hugo's here. Y'all all know that. Anything else to share like what Gus shared? Oh, I'm not trying to encourage y'all to drink. And I assure you, if I get drunk, it's very much on accident. I try not, but this is what Gus bought me for my birthday.
Nice.
I got hooked on raspberry flavored vodka, but again, really, I mean, the amount I drink, there's a little bit left. The amount that I drink is more medicinal than it is therapeutic. So I really don't drink much, but I do love vodka. Okay, 1 point. I don't have any voice, but not bad voice. Oh, I don't have any voice, not bad, but hopefully I'm feeling better now. The morning had the now. Oh gosh. Okay, yeah. Please stay quiet, guy. But do chat with us in the chat.
Yes.
We do want to hear from you, of course. All right. Gus, you and Val are in charge, so you tell me when to start, but I notice people do tend to show up late for this, and that's okay. We're family.
Well, you might.
Go on, Valerie. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Gus. What is?
No, you go. You go. No
I was going to say, just why don't you just go ahead and go? You know?
Okay. Now, Guy, I completely agree with what Gus is saying, especially the honey, ginger, and mint. It definitely will. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share. And then what I don't like about, the only thing I don't like about Zoom on Linux is I can't expand my gallery view of you guys. So Val, I absolutely need you and Gus to be my eyes and ears this morning. Hopefully they'll fix it to where I can expand the gallery view. Will it move for me? Oh, I'm going to stop sharing and reshare. So I've got this.
Just 1 minute.
I lost it. Oh, no wonder, because I'm blocking it now. Okay, there we go. Share. Share. Good. There we go. Share a desktop.
Yep, you got it.
Excellent. Okay. So this morning, I prefer y'all to interrupt me. In other words, I don't want to worry about giving the whole presentation before you ask questions. But this is a practical and philosophical journey. I know you can't imagine Dad going at it that way, but yep, that's the way I went at it. Now, these slides are in this bit.ly link. So in fact, let me put that in our chat so that you can get to them later. And then
Yes, and if you want to save the chat, the 3 dots at the lower right side, where the place where you can type in messages, on the right side, there's the 3 dots. If you click on that, you can save the chat.
Yes, exactly, Valerie. And so this is to the slide set. Oh, sorry, you can't see what I'm pointing. This is to this slide set, and this is to the code I'm going to demonstrate. Okay, so this is, I love when English happens this way, learning, reinforced learning. So I wanted to explain my motivations to learn reinforced learning, the holes that reinforced learning fills in the whole data science space, some great resources you can follow to learn it, my crazy, and I guess not in a sexual sense, but my masochistic learning style where I put myself through more pain to learn it mo better. And then intro to visual Python, which will be, I know, fun for y'all. If y'all haven't played with visual Python, you haven't learned to have the most fun you can possibly have with Python yet. And then my VP agent environment, my visual Python agent environment. So you can learn reinforced learning using the OpenAI Gem environment. I think that's great. I'm not dissuading anyone from going about it that way. I wanted the extra challenge to create my own environment. And then, and there were reasons I was doing that long term too. Then we're going to take a piece, we're going to integrate the brilliance that we've learned from reinforced learning. And let's get started. So learning RL. Again, I don't consider myself a reinforced learning expert. I'm just a passionate student of it. And I'm still learning it, loving it, and have a sense of where I'm going now. I need to get back to it because I put it on hold because I needed to learn transformers to see if it could help in my latest role that I stepped down from. But I also realized, oh, I might want to use transformers as the model for the agent in reinforced learning. So I'm eager to get back to reinforced learning. I enjoy learning more together. So if anyone wants to join me on this journey, that would be awesome. Okay. Now, why? When I say the holes that reinforced learning learns, I'm kind of asking why? Why learn reinforced learning? Well, I've got 3 degrees in mechanical engineering. And in the type of mechanical engineering I do a lot of predictive modeling there with physics. And I fell in love with predicting conceptual systems, virtual systems before they were built, because it speeds up prototyping. It makes prototyping and testing in the prototyping phase less expensive, but more insightful too. And so when I was doing all that, learning to do calculus digitally with computers and code just totally freed my mind in that realm of doing predictive modeling of multi-physical systems with controls. To me, that's just magical. And if I could ever teach a semester-long course to all of you on that, if you got to that level where you're ready for that course, I look for that point. Somewhere between halfway to 2/3 of the course, we get to a certain level of modeling, and I can see all my students at one time go, whoa, wow. And I love it when I get them to that point. It's just super great. And then you add design methodology, and it's even a bigger wow. But there's limits. There are limits to what you can do with multi-physical system modeling and control system design. Using those traditional methods of modeling, there's limits. That's why there was an increasing attractiveness to neural networks. Jan LeCun and I were seeking our PhDs roughly the same time. He was just doing something that affected the world much greater than me. I don't know if anyone ever used my research, but my PhD research was on design and modeling of hybrid electric vehicle power plants. I'm still proud of that work to this day, but I never knew if it really helped anyone that was developing those. Maybe someone at Toyota read my dissertation and it helped them. I hope so, because I love my Prius. They got it right. So, but what I'm saying is classical methods have very little return for efforts beyond a certain level of complication. So I started learning, like I was saying, expert systems, neural networks, fuzzy logic. And one of my favorite professors in grad school was the teacher of some of these courses. And I still love to stay in touch with him. Just really love the guy. But then in my career wanderings, I realized I needed to get to reinforced learning sometime, but it's just so hard. There's always too much to learn. But if we stay concept focused, the growth and learning is more manageable. If you've ever seen my Integrating Brilliance talk, it's a spirit of, hey, we have so much to learn. If you'll focus on concepts, not only can you learn better, you can do it faster, and you can cross-learn better, because you see how concepts are similar across many realms, but the terminology changes from here to there sometimes. So I think y'all all knew that one. I love to find brilliance from multiple people, things, disciplines, nature, realms, etc. And once I see some brilliance, I want to find ways to integrate it with other brilliant things. So my hope is to integrate brilliant things to benefit mankind. And I want to, y'all all know this. But RL is cool and deeply philosophical, and it was fathered by a philosopher, Richard Sutton. He's got this psychology background, and then he got into being interested in, hey, I can take my non-hard science and make a segue of value into the hard sciences with predictive analytics. I believe he was a master of integrating brilliance, but of psychology, Markov decision processes, computing, calculus, you name it. I mean, the guy, I really love Richard Sutton for what he gave us. Okay, confession one. RL really messed with my head. And some of you have heard me say one of my favorite people to learn from is the lazy programmer. And when I bought his video courses to help me learn, among other resources, reinforced learning, he confessed too that it really messed with his head in the beginning. But misery loves company, so I was glad that I wasn't alone, especially with someone of his caliber that I respect so much. And but getting over the hump with reinforced learning is worth it. Now, I know y'all think I'm smart, and yeah, I'm adequately capable intellectually, but it took me some time to get over the hump with this. So I just want to encourage you all. You may learn it faster than me, slower than me, it doesn't matter. Just stick with it if you really want to learn it. Take it in small steps. But confession two, I just thought it was so ultra cool. That's why I wanted to learn it. So a physical system learning how to best control itself, wow. And that we can speed this up with human tethering, meaning for a while, the reinforced learning agent is learning by a human, kind of figuratively speaking, holding the reinforced learning's hand and saying, okay, you made this prediction, but this is what I'd tell you to do. And you made this prediction, and I would tell you to do this. Well, the reinforced learning agent, while it's being expert or even reach or tethered, it's still making its own estimates, and it's able to figure out at a certain point, hey, human, I don't need you anymore. And that's just the cool math about it. And it can speed up by the way, I'm going to say this later. Why is that a big deal, the human tethering? Reinforced learning systems are notoriously hard to train. But if you can kind of give them that early stage help by human tethering, again, we want them to perform better than us, but it's hard to get them to the point where they're even doing okay. If we can human tether them or expert tether them, hey, all the better. And by the way, if you wanted to bring a new, more advanced reinforced learning agent online and you had a well-trained previous generation, it could be the thing that the new agent is tethered to help it start. So I don't know if y'all have watched iRobot. It could be somewhat like that, where the robots help the robots. But let's point something out. This is not machine learning. It's not supervised or unsupervised machine learning. Relatively speaking to reinforced learning, those are static problems because we have this data set and we're splitting up the data set and doing all these good practices with it to train a model. but that's static. We get the data one time. But these math machines, that is machine learning math machines, we want as much data as possible. But what do you do when there's too much data to consider or the data is dynamic? That's when you go to reinforced learning. As you might recall, when we're doing machine learning, we're reducing the dimensionality of the data set as much as practically possible. We don't want too many features, we don't want too few, and we want as many rows as possible. But if we get too many rows, it can be impossible. But what if the data we need is constantly flowing? And to solve the problem is just way too many dimensions. Well, in reinforced learning, our agent, which is still a math machine, but a different kind, it interacts with the world or either a real or a virtual environment. And we want our agent to develop, grow rapidly at a skill. But we're really saying how to convert what organisms do when they're learning to learn into a math problem. And this is what Richard Sutton did brilliantly. Once I have a good thing, as you guys know, I love to explore and excuse me. Once I have a good thing, for example, Sue and I have a favorite Mexican restaurant in our town, and we're very good friends with the owners, and it's a family business, and we all light up when we show up because, you know, even though they're Mexicans and we're Anglos, they're family to us. And but sometimes, and I try not to tell Orlando this, my buddy, we explore other Mexican restaurants or other restaurants. I'm sure he knows we do. But most of the time, Sue and I exploit the fact that, hey, Pueblo Lindo, that's very good Mexican food. We can't go wrong there. So most of the time we go to Pueblo Lindo, but every once in a while we explore a new restaurant. And we're glad we did because we thought, oh, hey, Pueblo Lindo, it does not serve Asian food. So maybe we want to go do something there. And then a lot of times I get the same few items from the menu, but every once in a while I take a chance and I explore a new item. But to continuously improve in any area, every once in a while we have to go off the beaten path and try a new thing. So continuous improvement relies upon exploration or trying new things. And that's the spirit of reinforced learning. Now, this is something from Richard directly. Reinforced learning is learning from rewards by trial and error during normal interaction with the world. This makes it very much like natural learning processes and unlike supervised learning, in which learning only happens during a special training phase. That is, reinforced learning is ongoing learning, in which a supervised, in supervised learning of machine learning, it's a training phase in which a supervisory or teaching signal is available that will not be available during normal use. But we're saying, no, in reinforced learning, we're constantly taking in new data because the problem was just too big and we got to learn on the fly. So again, we're still trying to appreciate why does reinforced learning exist? Well, consider an environment such as Go. It has 8 times 10 to the 100 positions. Now, just to give some perspective to these number of possibilities in the game of Go, physicists estimate there are 10 to the 80 to 10 to the 82 atoms in the universe. So you can see how specific, when we're looking at specific environments like the game of Go, they just become untenable to solve. And so certain math problems get really huge. And so using supervised or unsupervised machine learning to solve Go moves would be just untenable. That's a fancy word for it's just totally impractical. And by the way, even if we develop the computing power to do this with a math machine of the supervised learning kind or the unsupervised machine learning kind, it still wouldn't be practical compared to reinforced learning. So consider image training too. Training with 10 to the 6 images on good hardware would take 1 training day. But if you increase by 1 order of magnitude, that's 10 training days, etc. So if you go to 8 times 94 levels of magnitude larger, oh, wow, that's very impractical with Go. You can see the difference. To the 100 compared to the 10 to the 6, we're going 8 times 10 to the 94th, or 8 times 94 levels of magnitude larger. Order of magnitude is 10. It just becomes very impractical. So even small environments with few possible moves are impractical to solve with traditional machine learning solution techniques. Did someone have a question they want to interject? Okay. Now, I love that. To me, I consider lawyers scientists. Why? Because they're working with data that they call evidence, and they're coming up with the most practical inferences based on that data that's the most believable, or they're creating sufficient doubt to not cause a decision. So just like justice is blind, a lot of times our data work is blind. So in reinforced learning solutions, the solutions are made with estimates of estimates, but that's the way we live. If you really stop to think about it, we are essentially almost completely blind and ignorant, and thank God, powerless. Because if we had power with being blind and ignorant, we would misuse it all the time. But we're also, just as humans that go through a harsh world, we're also injured and corrupt. And so, but we live by constantly making our best estimates with estimates, and a lot of those are mistakes. So we rarely know the whole story on anything. We incompletely understand our bodies and the world. Our best is just collecting evidence and making logical inferences like they do in the justice system, like we do day to day. Some organism learning is like a learning math machine. And Richard Sutton helped us see that. We can create a mathematical equivalent, in many cases, not all, to what humans do. Now, this is not necessarily in all realms of what humans do, like generating solutions. So, but the solutions for reinforced learning can be very creative. They don't always follow the same patterns like machine learning. They can even be weird the solutions that a reinforced learning agent comes up with is what I mean is they don't always follow the same patterns like machine learning. They can even be weird if you don't give them adequate constraints. For example, some virtual biped experiments, meaning like human-like simulations, virtualizations of a human walking, when they didn't give the reinforced learning certain constraints, it'll end up doing something weird in the way it learns to walk. It still learned to do it, but that's what I'm saying. They can be weird if left unconstrained. So we really have to be very careful in the way we form what we call value functions in reinforced learning. It's a reward system that has like a scale of this wasn't good to this was great. And it's basically creating that value system and collecting returns on actions over time. And that's what makes it super value. So it's based on future rewards. It'll operate for a while and it'll stop and evaluate, how am I progressing? Basing on my value system, how am I progressing? And this was realizing that reinforced learning agents do this was humbling to me, because I thought, okay, I definitely want to operate on my value system. But as I look back at my past, I realize I've made some huge mistakes by not always operating according to my stated values, and even questioning my stated values to see, are they really accurate? Do I really understand them well? Am I really operating on them well? But a reinforced learning agent actually lives or dies in its ability to learn something. This is the first integrating brilliance I want y'all to think. Ask yourself, is my value system right? Am I interpreting my chosen value system right? And ask yourself, am I getting the returns I expect? So, but this isn't target based like machine learning. It's like an instantaneous feedback. And we'll get more into it. Here we go. So the final reinforced learning advantage is it's not using labeled data. Now, most of the data in the world isn't labeled. So this is huge. Really, it's very rare that we can do any kind of automatic labeling of data. I've done it once and it worked, but it was very hard to accomplish. It was a special case too, and not overly complicated. And even though it wasn't overly complicated, the whole problem itself was complicated by that. So, is there a practical way to deal with a sequence of actions? Yes, or reinforced learning wouldn't work, but there are still many challenges to solve to make reinforced learning more successful. So if you're new in your career and you're thinking you'd want to be a researcher and you're falling in love with RL, either by what I'm saying or other things you've heard and learned, pretty wide open field for where you could contribute, either as a professor or as, now industries getting some amazing places to work like OpenAI. By the way, I did look to apply to OpenAI. All the positions were in San Francisco, and I said, no thanks, I'll just do my own research. But it would have been great to join them. Reinforced learning systems can be notoriously hard to train. But if you define the rewards and returns in a wise way, it'll work, but that's still challenging. So it takes some practice to get skilled at that. Maybe in the future, there'll be a really good methodology set to help us with that, but I'd say we're still in the vertical integration or the vertical brilliance, the vertical genius area of reinforced learning. What I just mentioned, having a good set of methodologies to do this reliably over and over, that's more like as Geith and I like to say, and Geith originated this example, vertical genius is like Carl Benz creating the automobile. Horizontal genius is like Henry Ford producing cars on a factory line. So what I'm trying to say is there's still room to move reinforced learning into horizontal genius. So what I'm also getting at is researchers are still mastering ways to emulate organic organism learning. Now, if you want to become a researcher, go for it, is what I'm saying. Okay. Boy, equations. Anytime someone throws up equations, it can just lose you instantly. I want to teach y'all a secret about math equations. Each of these symbols is like 100 words. The first time you go through this, you just got to take it slowly. But the beauty of math equations is once you've gone through it slowly to understand each element, then it's great because you can see the whole story very concisely. But boy, when you first see a new equation, you got to take it slow. So let's look at this. If we're in a current state S, and that's an input to some value function, well, how do we get the value for that state S? Well, it's going to equal first a summation over possible actions A. But there's a probability pi of taking an action A, that I should have put quotes around this, taking an action A, given you were in state S. Now you may be thinking, oh, well, what do you mean? Well, let's say you're playing dodgeball. Are you going to jump to the left, jump to the right, duck, or jump straight up in the air? Well, what's the probability you take each of these actions? Exactly. What's the probability of taking that action given that you're in state S? Now, sometimes your problem is very deterministic, and so you can drop this whole part, but it's there to show you the infinite array of possibilities here. Now, I'm going to go to a next state, S prime. So I'm going to do a summation over all next states. I'm in state S. but there's many possible next states. And so, well, I need to look at sum over all possible rewards too, to figure out what the value is of being in this state S. So I look at the probability of getting to state S prime, again, over many possible S primes and many possible rewards. So getting to state S prime and getting reward R, given that I was in state S and took action A. Well, this can even be a probability, but it might also be very deterministic. So we don't have to use probabilities. Then finally, I'm saying, then there's some reward R plus a future discount factor. And the further we go into the future, the smaller this gets. But the value that I get at the next state. Now, don't worry about how to solve this yet. Just accept that, okay, that's all this is telling us. This is telling us a story about the way a reinforced learning agent looks at its environment. Again, I'm in some current state. I want to get to some next state, but there's many possible next states. There's a probability of taking a specific action given in a state, but there's a probability of me getting to a given next state to get a reward R, given that I started in a state and took action A. And once I do that, I will get a reward plus some discount factor times a value function for that next state. This is another version of that, given that we already have a group of actions. So I'm basically replacing this and saying, now I have a value function that's a function of being in state S and taking action A. Okay, again, you see a slide with equations on it. Again, these are pretty much the same equations, just arranged differently. This would end up being a table of possibilities. This would end up being a column of possibilities, because here we've got just S. Here we've got S and A. But these are very beautiful. If you didn't understand this completely on this first pass, you know what I would tell you: be patient and gentle with yourself. I didn't understand it. I was confused for weeks. And even when I thought I really finally understood it and how to write it in code, I had to go back and review still more. And then one day, one magical day, I coded it and it all worked. But it was a long time. But it was very rewarding. And pun intended, it was very rewarding. Okay. Well, how do we apply these equations? Well, like I was saying, it's deterministic. There are certain things you can cancel out and just make one. We're taking samples of these too as we go through the learning process. And this is huge right here. This is saying I'm looking for the greatest future returns, but how do I do that? I have to operate with an initial policy. Here's my policy. And I'm operating with that policy for a while, some initial random policy. I operate and I see, hey, what kind of values did I get? What kind of returns? And look at what I'm doing here. Saying, well, I got a return I'm at some time. And I'm looking ahead to say, if I follow a certain path, I look to time t plus 1, which will be I'm in another state. Well, I got a reward for that. Then I've got my first discount factor at step 2. Then I get my next discount factor, which would be gamma squared, until I go to all the way to, this is some total steps minus the one I'm at, minus 1, meaning this discount factor keeps getting a higher power times the return at the final step. This is how I'm getting returns. This is how the reinforced learning agent is learning the best steps to take by making a lot of mistakes. In other words, if you've heard that fail fast and frequently, reinforced learning agents are the masters of that. They start with crap plans or crap policies, and they see, okay, what do I get for that? Oh, well, I already need to see how I could make a little improvement. But again, it's just using an estimate of an estimate. The problems are too big to solve. So now it operates on that new estimated policy. And you know what? It improved a little bit, or maybe not. But most of the time it's acting greedy. Sometimes it's exploring. So it operates with that new improved policy, gets a little better by doing that over and over. It stops and evaluates. How can I improve my policy? It keeps doing that until it gets to the point. But really, all three of these equations are the key. And this is done through a recursive programming coding method. Now, I might have completely lost you. Count this as, okay, at least I was exposed to the lingo. I'm not going to judge myself for not completely understanding it, because I'm telling you, I certainly didn't when the lazy programmer was first explaining this to me, or David Silver, or Richard Sutton's book. I didn't get it the first time. Well, what are some great resources? Reinforcement learning and introduction. Now, there's an original version that's free, and there's a latest revision that, if you can afford it, I would encourage you to buy. Again, free first edition, reasonably priced second edition. I love the lazy programmer. I don't know his real name. He's one of those secret guys. But when I've interacted with him on his Q&A for his Udemy courses, he's been kind to me. And I said, I'm just going to call you Laser. He said, that's fine. But you can go to him there, or all his courses are on Udemy. David Silver's free on YouTube. I think he's a professor out of Cambridge, and he was one of the instrumental people in programming a reinforced learning agent to be the best human champion at Go. So just like we were saying, a reinforced learning agent can now play Go and chess better than the best humans. Then there's algorithms of reinforced learning. This is when you want to get deeper into just the hard math. And then OpenAI Gym's a great way to get started at a high level. Of course, in my humble opinion, study a wide range of sources always, because it really, when you hit those hurdles and you're not sure how to get over them, it's amazing how much just a few different references will help you. Y'all make sure you interrupt me if you want to ask them. Okay, my crazy learning style. What did I do? I love to start from the math concepts, like I was just going over, then get better and better at the detailed math. And I like to work that out by hand as much as possible. Then I get into my own code and even my own environment. So when I can, there's sometimes you think, okay, yeah, getting to the math concepts, that can take a while. Mastering the detailed math, that's even harder. But I realize I don't really know for sure that I've mastered the detailed math until I get my own code solving the detailed math. Then it's where I've proven to myself, you've got the concepts, you've got the details right. But then I went further. I even went to my own environment. Now, why did I do my own environment when I could have used OpenAI Gyms? I just see and learn more. It was a way to give even more learning dimensions to myself. But I can experiment more. I can change my environment at will. I can upgrade it at will. So, and again, many encourage starting with a provided environment, and I will never discount that advice. But again, that's a great plan, and OpenAI Gym's great for that, and so is the MathWorks. And there's even more options. I just find additional benefits of my own code from scratch. But I think now that I've done that, as I get into more experiments, I should go look at these other tools for speed. But doing my own code from scratch exceeded my expectations. It was harder and longer than expected, but the insights were even greater than expected. And it helped me get back up to speed with Visual Python. And these are some links. Again, you can go to the link in the chat. Oh, I am just asking to add this. Yes, guys, make sure I get to your question. I think we're coming to it in the presentation, but let's do spend a lot of time discussing that soon here. So these are great resource areas for, well, maybe not mine, but there's great resources to learn Visual Python. I encourage y'all to learn it. Here's a fun example I did when I hadn't used Visual Python in years, so I wanted to get back into it. Terry Singh posted a picture of these pendulums of slightly different lengths, and I wanted to do it. This is using physics, but using Visual Python. Yes, I coded this from scratch with Visual Python. If you've seen my latest Integrating Brilliance post or presentation, you saw some animations that look kind of like this, but with electric circuits and some mechanical dynamical systems, and those were all done by me in Visual Python. I love to do it. Thank you, Gus. But again, if people look for the bit.ly link in the chat, you can get to this slide deck that has those links. So my Visual Python agent environment, what does it look like? It looks like this. This was a fun thing I did to promote Kate's very first dedicated conference. I'm still confused why she doesn't spell it DATAKATED, but she's too humble to change the name. So I want y'all to watch how this learns over time. Let's hope this will run. I'm concerned. Great. Okay. It's going to show some data over here. And right now it's doing a ton of exploration. But it's just got random policies here, and it's learning over time. And this is a bad state. This is the good state to end up in. But you see very quickly, it's learning by mistakes right now. But after much more training, boom, it knows how to avoid the losing state, and it arrives at the winning state. And you see in this case, I was successively, lowering my exploration rate. I wasn't letting it explore as frequently over time, and it actually did better that way. Okay, let's go to the next one, a little more complicated one. This is Andrew Jones, my buddy, and let's run this guy. And there is some background music to this. I wonder if it'll play. It probably won't play. Now, notice I start with a high exploration rate again. Oh, there is some audio if y'all want to turn it up. It's one of my favorite music sections. So the yellow or the gold is the winning state. The red is the losing state. And it's just exploring. It's learning by trial and error. It's boy, the most brilliant thing about reinforced learning agents, they don't care about failing. They want to fail fast and frequently so they learn how to be successful as soon as possible. But this particular set learned really quickly. And you can see, oh, it's very much wanting to avoid this, but I wonder, this arrow, that just runs it into the outer wall here. Will it ever correct that? Let's see if it ever corrects that. Well, now I should do this, sorry. Let's go to that end state. I'm going to pause this. And I'm going to take it to the end. I want you to see something. It never learned to get rid of this policy. Let's see, maybe I can go right. That's okay. Look, it knew, hey, don't go over here. Go down, go over, go down. And it, by the way, it also never learned, hey, you don't need to do that. The shortest is over here. Well, if I kept training it, it probably would have gotten there. But if it never learns to not do this, hey, that's okay. It should have learned to get rid of these. Like, no, don't ever go over this way. Well, okay, you might randomly pop into here and go down or up, but it won't go over this way. In other words, these can do a great job without learning every perfect policy. And we're that way too. Sometimes we get really good at something, but we still might occasionally explore and make a mistake, and then we kind of update our own policy. So if this had trained even longer, probably would have learned, hey, replace these two arrows with one that does this. And also allow this one to do this. But why is it going so low? Hey, I don't want to go up this way. It kind of like we are. It kind of develops phobias. Okay. One last one with my dear son Danny Ma out of, oh, by the way, I'm taking serious sequel and I love it. And Danny's giving me some specialized help if I need it. But anyway, let's run Danny through this. And I think he's got some cool music. Oh yeah, there we go. I hope y'all can hear it. This is one of my favorite Celtic instrumental songs ever. Now you see this is a completely random policy, but right after the first run, it's updated and it's learned something at least. Now it's just going to keep going. And well, this is fun to watch and the song's awesome. So we'll go the whole way through. And put questions in the chat if you want while we're watching. But just take careful note of how this thing is learning from trial and error. And by the way, to solve, oh gosh, that is loud. If we were to solve this with traditional methods, even that first problem with Kate, it's gargantuan, all the possibilities. It's not practical on even my powerful computer to solve that with a closed form solution. It was learning by trial and error, gaining a little bit more experience over time, constantly refining its policies. It's using its value system. So now see right over here, it's still not learning. Don't bump into the wall, but watch. It's going to update a lot right over here. It's oh, look at this great path right here, but it still hasn't updated this one. It may never update this one. Why? It may never get over there with the policies it's learning, but it's still, it's already learning, oh, don't go over there. We don't like that. But if it did somehow explore through all four of these, which is highly unlikely, it's saying go up, up, it still hasn't learned to update these. But if these other policies get strong enough, and look how stupid it is at the start state, it has to explore out of here. It's still figuring that out. Let's see if it updates this time. Yes, finally, thank you. Boom. Now, it might update this finally, but it's still, thank goodness. Well, it would have been better had it gone this way. But what it's saying is it's afraid to go over here. It learned that very early on. Now I'm speaking, it's mathematically afraid, right? Boom. And it's just getting smarter and smarter over time. Now, even though I love this song, let's fast forward a little bit. You can start to look at some of the policies it's changed, but it's still pretty much from that latest, greatest one we saw. And let's do right here at the end, what it looks like. Right here, it's pretty much, there's so much data I'm sharing here, we can't fit it all on the screen. But look at what it tends to do. Just look, it either goes over here or down here, and it wants to move directly over here to the winning state, or across here, or down through here. All those are good options. But notice we can still go here, but once it gets over here, it's saying, oh, hey, if you happen to explore down here, then go over here. And if you happen to explore out of this one and go here, go back up here. In other words, go back up here or go over here. And then even here, okay, now go across here. We've got so many policies encouraging to avoid this path. Why? Because they don't want to go here, but then it never really updated this. So what? It's got so many learnings to say, avoid this path, avoid, like come over here, boom. Yeah, don't, if you explore here, oh, go over here. But it just, because it got so strong here, it never quite completely updated these, and that's okay. It would be expensive to get, or we could say, do a lot of exploration because we can afford it, and then you'll update all these policies. But why? It did good enough here. So again, y'all can play with these more on your own. Now, the best part. We work hard to develop our skills in arts. Wouldn't it be great if we could benefit more from those things like reinforced learning? So for decades, I've been abstracting great STEM things that we learn. This is for people that have never heard me give the integrated brilliance talk. So control system design for day-to-day life. In other words, getting accurate feedback, not listening to hyper-emotional or hypercritical, looking for caring feedback, accurate feedback. And then hybrid and integration for integration of hybrid solutions in general. All these are just things you've heard me talk through before, I think. But what reinforced learning reinforced for me and taught me? Why fret about failure? Learning happens by studying and trying. So try more frequently and fail more frequently. Some policy updates based on new data are crap. We might have gotten bad data even. We might have been blown off course by having a very emotional day or whatever, but just keep being open to changing and growing. We all go through struggles. You don't need to learn everything and correct everything in the space to be successful. So that's why I'm a big fan of, you want to get better at interviewing? Start applying. Don't wait to get more skillful. Go ahead and interview and fail. That's really good data. Why you didn't get, you may think, well, they don't get feedback. No, but you can kind of discern it if you get more and more sensitive to the way your interviewers acting. And even when you are doing well with certain policies in life that you're using, explore periodically so you can still make yourself better. If you look at what Lean Six Sigma practitioners do, they actually stress out their manufacturing system to see how the whole system responds. So that in case that really happens, they can be ready for the worst. Oh, this is the last slide. So why don't we go back to the outline slide? And I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to stop sharing. Again, you can open this presentation in your chat, and that way I can see all the heads here. Oh, let's see, escape. And I'll shrink this. And then let's talk.
Can I
And
ask a
guys might
question?
have to, yes, you may, of course.
Okay.
You're the moderator. You're in charge, Val.
So, so thank you for the presentation. I'm not familiar with this, but I was thinking as a business person, I'm not how, or I don't know if it's appropriate to use this in solving a business problem, or what kind of business problem might be addressed using this particular method.
Yes. Okay. The first big answer is it's something that's huge. It's untenable to solve it with machine learning methods. The dimensionality of your data set is ongoing and too big. That's when, now we've only skimmed the surface.
Excuse me, can I just ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So when I think of too big, I think of like a company like American Express, and they do very well, like monitoring all of their credit card holders, and you've got, millions, billions of transactions that are going on all across the world. There's all of this data. Is that sort of what you're talking about when you say big?
It takes time. Val, I'm going to confess to you, it took me some time to appreciate what problems are more appropriate for machine learning and what problems are more appropriate for reinforced learning. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can find a funny video to share with y'all. wish that I should include this. Yeah, here it is. This is so cool. Okay. I wonder, let me see if I can just share this, if it's the right one, first of all. I think it is. I'm just reviewing it real quick, so be patient with me. Oh gosh, too much drama here. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. Boy, they did a good job on this video. These two students out of Stanford that wanted to learn reinforced learning and do their research on it. So I'm going to just share that. And then I'll play it. Okay. Let's see. I got to move you guys over here. And then I think the audio will play. So let me know if it doesn't. Is the audio playing? Let me know in the chat.
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
Let me see. Yeah, y'all keep watching and I'll see what I
Yeah,
might
no
be able to
worries.
do.
Okay. Oh, now it's working.
3, 2, 1, go.
Now this is a reinforced learning agent controlling this DeLorean. They are not touching anything other than starting the agent. And of course, it took it some time to learn this through trial and error, but they sped it up by using a model first, I'm sure, so they wouldn't die on the course in the early trials of it. So they probably tethered it to an early model. They might have even used some human tethering to start it. But now, all the data, imagine all the data being used to train the system and to try to train it. It may not be easy for you to appreciate how much data is involved, because this is very mechanical engineering right now, very mechanical dynamics. But there are a ton of factors: the amount of braking, the amount of drifting, as they call it among the Japanese. The car is drifting, it's power turning, power sliding, because that's literally the fastest way for it to get through this course. These are huge amounts of data, but it accomplished this through making estimates of estimates. And notice how it's not hitting a single cone, but see how close it came to those cones? That's amazing. Now, a human could not match this. Even a very skilled human might match it some of the time, but this reinforced learning agent, given that the tires stay the same traction and all of that, it would even adapt to changing if it's in.
Sounds perfect.
If it's in
Almost like
continuous,
some math for this.
if it's in continuous learning mode, it could even adapt for changes in tire wear and stuff like that. But my hat's off to these guys. That's when, I mean, I had a lot of fun
at stanford.edu.
Oh, and I'll put this link in the chat for that, because there's, yeah, exactly, Kaishan. Yeah, Rod, I agree. Yes, Gus. These guys did great. So close that. But Valerie, the amount of data that was running full time and being collected, and how it can dynamically change. Like, if you think of all the possible policies and actions, it's way beyond the capability of any computational system on Earth, even the one that was used to train Wu Dao or GPT-3 or whatever the latest one is, I think from Google Brain. Those are huge supercomputers being used to solve those transformers. They couldn't even solve this reinforced learning problem. But by, again, making estimates from a small portion of the data on estimates of estimates, it's really what it comes down to. it just learns to improve its policy a little bit over time. And again, there's these things we can use like human tethering to a model. If I were working with them, I said, hey, let's make a model that goes through the course first. And then let's just very carefully take the car through the course actually until it says, oh, I can do better than you now. And then I bet that was after several trainings. It got a little better each time until it was doing that max drifting and barely missing the cones. But if you think of all the data from the cones and the speed of the course and probably even little things like there might be things like the humidity and how it affects the track facts, the track's traction, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I hope that helped a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's this repetitive exposure to it. Now, I see reinforced learning being used more for these mechanical things or virtualizations of these mechanical things. Then you see it for other things. But Gaith and I have had some discussions with some friends that we really respect on shows where we realized, oh, fuzzy logic problems can become very taxing and challenging to solve. Reinforced learning would be a great technique to explore for that. Again, it's when there's this constant flow of data, real time, reinforced learning, great for that. If you were to train, again, for every possibility of the card taking an action, getting to that actual action, having this reaction, getting that reward, it's just so mind-blowing and gargantuan to do it with a closed form solution. Not possible.
That's curious for me is when you say you're giving it a reward, what does that mean? How do you reward it?
Yeah, it's really, again, it's not an organism.
Right.
It's just we are creating these systems. We are establishing their value systems. We are even doing trial and error to say, oh, that value system's not working good. We need to correct it here. The thing that I hope to do next, Val, is to have an inverted pendulum being controlled by a reinforced learning agent. Now, I've taught my students to do this before with classical control system design. And it's quite possible to do it with ordinary differential equations and use digital calculus to solve those. But it's kind of like a learning step to say, oh, I'd like to be able to just take a small step to use a reinforced learning agent. Now, the thing I showed today, it doesn't even use a model. It just uses policies. But sometimes the policy is replaced by a model itself. It can be a simple physics model, but one that's not perfect. It's just, it gives guide to the reinforced learning agent. And so there will be some, how do I put it? It'll be kind of like a policy model or something like that, but something that doesn't require you to have a fine-tuned knowledge of how to apply differential equations to physical systems to get it to balance that pendulum in an inverted state. Then when I master that, I want to do it with a two pendulum, like it's got a joint in the middle, and then it can balance it that way. That's too hard for a human to do usually, or it'd take a long time for a human to learn. But because reinforced learning agents don't have an ego, they fail fast and frequently, and they learn pretty well. But you can train that virtually, and then I could create an actual physical inverted pendulum. And what we learned from the same parameters in a model can now be a starting point for the actual reinforced learning agent. You might say, well, wouldn't it work out of the box? Not as well as the virtual case, because no amount of virtual work we can do can truly match the real world. It's like George Box taught us. All models are wrong, but some are useful. The models we come up with in the physics realm, they're also useful, but they're not perfect. They're very accurate if we do a good job. And then you might think, well, if you can do such a good job with ordinary differential equations, why would you use reinforced learning? Because as the system gets more and more complicated, to get an adequate return on modeling effort, that modeling effort's an investment. To get an adequate return on it, you have to do so much more modeling to get just a little bit of improvement. Whereas if you add a reinforced learning agent and train it carefully, quick returns.
So listening to what you're saying, so we've just had, some space flights go off. So with all of that data and all, is reinforced learning used like for space, for the space flights?
I don't know that, but consider an R-22 Raptor, the latest generation of fighter jet. I would suspect that some of those more advanced planes use control system. In other words, the pilot's really flying by wire. And it could be that they are using reinforced learning systems to help control them. Now, I want to see, okay, Guy, back to your earlier, I am just asking to add philosophical dimension, how reinforced learning will help when the targets are very sparse, I think you meant to type. I mean, if we have too many accepted final status, how RL will help. Again, that's why reinforced learning was created. I haven't interviewed Dr. Sutton, but I think if I said, what inspired you to use Markov decision processes to solve this problem? He'd probably say, because classic machine learning techniques were untenable, even with neural networks. We had to have something that could update its policies and learning on the fly. We realized this was very much like what organisms do. But I think he already had a clue that was necessary because he was probably a well mathematically informed psychologist that decided, we can't use, kind of like Einstein would say, we couldn't solve the current problems we were facing with the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. Meaning, machine learning is great for a small subset, but if we go outside of a bigger data realm, we can't use that same mentality to solve those level of problems. For example, Newtonian physics works very well within a small range. But now if you're doing things like in the space program and beyond, it ain't going to be accurate. It ain't going to work. We've got relativity in play now, and it does not obey Newtonian physics. Or quantum physics, not Newtonian physics anymore. Very different. Well, I hope I didn't just lose all of you. This is meant to be high level and philosophical, and why and when you'd go to reinforced learning and how going about solving it is done. It's kind of at that level. Any questions? Okay, if you get into learning this on your own.
How long did you? I have a question.
Oh, go, Yogita, go. Yeah, you bet, Guy.
How long did you take to build those models?
So every night after work for a few months, and to keep myself accountable, Yogita, I don't know if you knew me back then, but I was doing posts on my progress on reinforced learning. I started out by just showing the environment that I created in Visual Python, but the agent wasn't even moving yet. And I got encouragement and support. And so each week on Thursdays, I called it Thirsty Thursday. I was like, okay, here's the next level. Here's where I've gotten to. Here's what I'm struggling with. And then when I had the first one working, I was so excited. But there were videos, so you don't get as many official views, but I'm not sure I believe the view count when it's just a picture or text either. But it was getting very encouraging reaction rates from just sharing my learning journey. So it helped keep me accountable, Yogita. But I'd say from start to getting it working, not counting the studies I did before that time, 4 months to actually get that first simple model working. And then, I'm glad I stopped to learn transformers, but I keep having interruptions to getting back to going to the next phase with reinforced learning, and I'm hoping I'll get there. Okay, hang on a minute. I wish I'm able to argue and go with the discussion. Okay, good. And then, yeah, so I enjoy, I wish I'm able to, tell me what you want to argue. I can go with the discussion till 16th of November. So yeah, we could definitely have a follow-up discussion then if that's what you're getting at. But so any other questions? Thank you, Yogita. And thank you, Val. Anything? Hugo, does it look fun? And does it look hard? I assure you it's hard. It's actually, I don't know if you all have had this experience. You dive into learning a new thing, and it seems really hard, but you persevere. And then you get to a point where it's working and you understand it, and you look back and you have this feeling, how did I make that so hard? When you press through to really master, or I don't want to say master, but to get to a point of competency at something where you can do it at a certain level, that's a frequent feeling like, oh, why did I make it that hard? Okay, guys saying, I'm just telling you that I enjoy the session very much. The discussion only related to when we go to use reinforced learning. Oh yeah, definitely we'd like to add some more scenarios. And I'm frankly not quite qualified to do it at any deeper than the answers I've already provided, unfortunately. Like I will be glad when I can look back from the experience of, say, having a neural network model embedded in the reinforced learning agent's brain that gets trained to control that inverted pendulum. But I might try other models. Or, in other words, that model replaces the policy or becomes the policy, especially when you're at a mechanical dynamics or even electrical dynamics type scenario. So I'm looking forward to being able to look back from that level of learning, climbing higher, applying that, and looking back. Okay. Any comments? Any questions? We can end early today if we want, or we can just start talking about something else if y'all want. But it's okay if we end early. Yes, Yogita.
There is a question in the chat. Is reinforcement learning different from deep learning neural network?
Thank you. And it just now pop up in mind. Okay, Kaishin. Yes. Again, deep learning is still a form of, okay, even transformers, even though many of the initial training of a big transformer is unsupervised learning, and then they do really good with that. They can do better also, though, when you give them specialized training. Once they've been trained on a big general set, you can give them specialized training so they'll do even better on that specialized stuff. But it's different from deep learning in that deep learning or deep learning neural networks or, again, transformers are a type of deep learning that uses a lot of specialized types of neural networks for the Lego elements of that big Lego based transformer. Whereas reinforced learning, again, if you use something like a supercomputer to train GPT-3, it might be able to do, it probably could look at all the huge number of possibilities that we looked at for that very first grid world problem with Kate in the Datacated conference. But once you got to the size of the environment for Andrew and especially Danny, if you were going to try to use the supercomputer that trained GPT-3 for one of those problems, I still don't think it could handle it. We've got a result to this. Reinforced learning is basically a form of trickery, where it's literally using estimates of estimates to update those policies or update the models that are like a policy so that the reinforced learning learns to do amazing things like what we saw with the Stanford students. Oh, thank you, Rob. So Rob's saying, great intro to RL, Thom. Thanks for the insights and big picture. I believe that flight. Yes, it does. There's just a drop left. I was thinking of visiting this liquor store today to go get a refill. But don't get drunk. Dad's not saying, I'm not trying to be a bad example here to my children and to my sisters and brothers. Thanks, Kaishan. Good question. And that's the main thing. Why use reinforced learning when we have machine learning? Because reinforced learning is, well, think about it in machine learning. We have supervised and unsupervised. And with supervised, we have continuous or regression type problems and classification type problems. In unsupervised learning, we have a lot of different approaches. You go up higher to get to the branch of what reinforced learning deals with. It's a whole different branch, a whole different animal. Okay, bye, Yuko. Yes, and Yuko's doing great work with the Power BI stuff. Thank you. And he's a great organizer because he basically took over 3 or more weeks of Saturday Tech Time chat so that people could be introed into basic machine learning stuff. I'll tell you what, I'm going to wait just a couple more minutes, but if there's no more questions or nobody wants to just hang out, yeah, let's just say goodbye a little early today. That's okay. Okay, Gus is going to sign out. Oh, he's off.
Yeah, so, sorry. Yeah, no, I can stay, but it's fine. I need to start cooking here because it's nearly 6:30.
I've got sourdough bread and egg creation on my brain. All of a sudden, I'm thinking there's a dish I like a breakfast creation I'm good at.
I bake my sourdoughs on Saturday mornings every week. And well, today for dinner I'm doing something like I have been craving for it, to be honest. It's kind of like it's like a stew made of chicken. You only use red paprika, carrots, potato, and some white wine, and then you serve it on top of plain rice, and that's it.
Oh yeah, Sue made a really good dump it over rice dish last night. It was hard for me to not go back too many times.
And it is good for this when the weather is getting cold. You're gonna get used to that, guy.
Hey, just so y'all know, Guy added a really good comment. RL can be used when the constraints are clear, but the data does not cover all the range of possibilities or patterns. Maybe I like to consider it this way, and I agree. That is good. Yeah, Guy's saying he's going through reinforced learning training right now about living in Germany through the winter, the hard way. There may have been nothing you could do to avoid this, whatever you got, guys.
So Thom, the video which we saw about those kids trying the self-driving car. So it's like, is the data created like when the car starts moving, then it will understand what is happening and then keep on creating a data set and learn from it. Is that what is happening behind?
My best guess is this. Most of their data flowing in is from sensors like accelerometers, for sure, parameters from the engine, like how much acceleration, like what's the position of the gas pedal. They might have added extra sensing to the car to say, we are slipping, the tires are slipping this much compared to our actual speed. So I'm imagining it was a rear wheel drive DeLorean car, and that the front wheels could reliably be thought of the actual speed the tires were rotating, but there might have been speed and or rotation sensors on the rear wheels. We could go on and on. So accelerometers, all these sensors, all these things from the engine. Plus, they might have been having a model that estimated things they couldn't measure. And then that might have been part of a bigger architecture that I assume was maybe training something like a convolutional neural network to make the estimates it needed to say, okay, now that we've got all this state, you need to react with these outputs. And then that would be the actions the reinforced learning model is taking. And so it goes for a while, and the system has to have a way to say, now, let me say, it could be that at a certain point, like when they made this video, they said, you're just going to run through the whole course and you're not going to update the model mid-course. It might have just been saying, no, I don't know how they trained it, but one possible way is to say, no, we're only going to allow you to update each episode. You go through the track and you update the model. Then you let us know when you're through updating and we'll go through the track again. It could have been that way. It could be that, no, every 5 seconds it's doing a model update on a separate track, and then it updates that model, as soon as it can. I'm not sure. I'd love to interview those guys to say, okay, just at a high level, how did you manage the training cycles? And they may say, oh yeah, we just decided to do it after each run through the course. That'd be fun to ask them.
I was watching some similar video about self-driving cars, and like how do they train, like what all conditions, what is the condition of the road, and is it slow, is there a slope, or those kind of things. And then the machine will learn, like if this kind of slope is there, I need to slow down, those kind of things. I was like, yeah,
Exactly.
something similar is going on here, like the condition of the road, the condition of the weather. Are you driving on a hard road or in sand? Those kind of parameters it takes.
Yeah, exactly, Yogita. And what I think I will do is I'll add, by the way, I just put a GitHub link into the chat, and I think I'll add these 2 links to the presentation. But the one that I just added is completely virtual. And I think you guys would just really love it. It's one of the things that first got me excited about the possibilities of reinforced learning. So I'm trying to get a seat. Yeah, I'll add those links back because they would be really, really good to have in my presentation. So I'm going to make sure I had those open. Yeah. Does that help, Yogita?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Any more questions? And please don't be shy about signing off if you need to go. I'm just hanging around in case others have more questions. I'll provide too. I've got my almonds here if I get really desperate. Okay, Mitch, so good to see you. Thanks for coming to Tech Time Chat too. It's always good to see you, Gita. Ashton, you got anything before we sign out? Ngozi, you got any comments? Hey, Neil. What are
I'm
you
just
doing?
hi Thom. I'm still
Hi,
just
Ngozi.
digesting all what you've shared. Thank you so very much, for wonderful session. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. I know Neil
Thank
was
you.
motivated. Neil's going to go off and start coding in Python so he can create a reinforced learning engine.
Oh!
Hi, Neil.
Yogita, how are you?
I'm good, I'm good.
Those are some
Good.
styling glasses you got there, Neil.
Amazing. Thom, you should take a pointer.
Yes. Oh, let me, these aren't my wear outside glasses. These are just my special use computer.
Indoors.
But I do like
Yeah.
my other ones are actually Ray-Ban brand, and I love them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think y'all have
Lovely.
seen me very often in those. These have
Right.
blue blocking, and they're not progressive, so it makes it easier for me to see at all angles when my screens are just not too far away. But Neil,
Right.
man, you're styling. What color are those? I'm a little color challenged.
Teal. It's teal.
Teal.
It's still, isn't it? Beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey, bye,
Yeah.
Tyson. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks. I'll sign off now. Thank you so very much, Thom. I will,
Bye, Ngozi.
we'll catch up
We'll catch up
as
Monday.
planned.
Yes.
Yeah, no worries. Bye-bye. Bye,
Joel,
everybody.
Nima, you guys have
Bye.
anything, Joel or Nima or Neil? Neil, you understood that presentation, right? I hope I didn't speak below you, Neil.
What
Oh, does he have a watch, Yogita? Guy to sing something?
Yes.
Oh, I was missing that. I didn't quite figure out that it was a watch. Look, how does that tell time? Oh, wow. Now, can you go deep sea diving with that watch?
Can you feel that? Can you go swimming with this?
Can you go in the shower with it? Probably shouldn't. Nima and Joel, do you have any questions before we sign off? It's okay if you don't.
Nothing from my side. Thank you for the meeting today, Thom. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm glad, Joel. Again, it takes time. Don't be bothered. If you jump into it, be patient and gentle with yourself. It can happen. And you can use what I showed, but there's other good resources other than mine.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, and have a lovely day.
You too, Joel. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Guys, I hope you feel better really soon. And if y'all want to continue talking we certainly can do it over Slack, the Slack work group. All right. Take care, guys. Let's get my blur.
Bye. Yeah.